Hey guys, it's Ario. I'm back with another ZvT guide. This time I'm going to be going through a game that I played where I played against 2cc Liberator. I'm going to assume that you've watched the first video in this series of ZvT guides, which I'll put in the description. This video is going to be a lot less scripted and more train of thought. I'm going to analyze the game from my perspective and tell you what responses you should be doing against players that play 2cc Liberator. So let's start getting into it. I'm not going to go into super details about the initial build order, since I already made a video on that, so if you want to see that, just check that out. So I'll just skip ahead to the mid game. Alright, so there's the small Reaper micro, but everything is just super normal. Alright, so it's around 3:20, we send our Ling out to scout, and at 3:50 we're going to send our Overlord in at the same time. So, first thing, our Ling sees 2 depots at the front. This means every single time, if you see 2 depots with the normal Ling scouting, even if you just see 1 depot, it's going to be a 2cc opening, which means that you're going to have to cut drones at a lower amount than 3cc, which I'll explain in a bit. But if you see a few depots at the front with your initial Ling scout that you send at the timing that I said in the video, if there's 2 depots, it's not 3cc. Next, our Overlord will go in, and it's going to see there's no add-on the starport. I actually saw the Liberator in this game, but you probably won't be so lucky. Because I didn't see an add-on, I know almost 100% that it's going to be a Liberator. It could still be a Viking, of course, or a Hellbat all-in, but I am going to be just as prepared for those, since I don't really have to do anything to prepare for those. So, 2cc Liberator, if you see depots at the front, no add-on the starport, it's most likely going to be Liberator. As a response, we get a Spore in each of our mineral lines at 420. On some maps, because of where the queens are normally positioned, you can get away with making 2 Spores, because I can keep my queens here to deny creep, and if the Liberator comes here, I can just kill it. But on most maps, you'll have to make 3 Spores, so I would recommend making all 3 at around 420 to be in time for a Liberator. Should bring those up. So the Liberator is going to come in. Something I like to do is send one of my creep queens to the main to deny the Liberator. It'll come at around 440 to 450, so I like to send a creep queen there and maybe start an extra queen. Just because having 2 queens makes the Liberator defense so much easier, but you can deny it with 1 queen and a Spore as well. So at the same time, I'm just following the Hellion movements with my Overlords and keeping my queens in position the whole time. The Liberator's going to poke in and get 2 kills because I was a bit out of position, but I'll reposition the Spore at my natural and I managed to pick it off. So the follow-up is completely standard. I'm going to go up to 5 gases while taking a 4th base, and I'll also get my 2 evolution chambers, get my bailing speed. Everything's going to be completely normal. And you'll notice I haven't actually scouted since I saw the Liberator. Almost every single time when they open Liberator, it's going to be into bio, so you don't have to worry too much about scouting. He of course could be doing a random 2 base all-in, but since that's very difficult to scout anyway, if you just make units on 66 drones, you'll be okay. So, versus 2 base, I would recommend always stopping at 66 drones, even if you don't take any damage, and just making enough units to be safe against the tank push. The earliest a tank push can hit is usually around 630, or earlier if they're doing a dedicated 2 base all-in. So as long as you have units ready for 630, you'll be good. So you can see I'm making enough units to stop that. Another thing that's nice is once you've made the large amount of units that you would need to stop a tank push, it's very easy to surround the Hellions if they poke onto creep because you have such a large unit count. So if you've made a lot of units and your opponent's Hellions are still being really aggressive and haven't gone home, it's very easy just to surround them without losing too much. Alright, so now I'm going to split my Lings to scout for a tank push, so I'll put some at the watchtowers and outside the normal attack parts. I see his Marines here, so I know he's pushing on this side, so I'll get all my units in position. I probably could have broken these rocks this game to make the defense even easier, but not the most important thing. So when attacking a double drop, when you have this many units, the best thing to do is always to run past the Marines with the Lings instead of just A-moving the Marines, because then the Marines will kite backwards and deal a lot of damage, whereas if you surround the Marines first and then attack, they'll have to pick up or they'll die to Banelings. Alright, so behind this I'm getting my Infestation Pit. I already got my Hydrogen earlier. After you, as a general rule, after you defend the 2-tank push, then you're safe to drone up to 75-ish. I went to 78 this game because I was feeling in a really good spot. Usually as soon as you make the number of units you would need to stop a tank push, it's okay to go to 75 drones. So I see he's rotating to the left side with the watchtower. I'm scouting with my Overseer now to see if he's got a 4th base or if he's playing 8 racks. I see the 4th base, so I know it's okay to start my Hive and my Lurker Den and start teching up. A mistake I made this game is you should always have units in position by around 7:30 for the second double drop. Usually it might be less important at the lower levels where they might not split up their army as often, but at a mid to high level, usually the Terran will double drop one side at around 6:30 to 7 minutes, and then at 7:30 they'll have a second double drop on the other side, so you'll have to split your army in half to defend both. And a mistake I made this game was I didn't pre-split my army in half. And I also didn't have control of this watchtower early enough, so I didn't see the other double drop coming. So you can see I'm going to take a little bit of damage because my pre-split army is not like quite big enough. I should have had a few Banelings here. Something else you'll notice is my Baneling count is actually quite low. I only have 10 Banelings on the map, whereas I have 60 Zerglings. And the reason for that is I only need to morph Banelings to stop a big push. You don't need more than 5 or 6 Banelings to stop a double drop, since he can always just target down a few Banes, but he'll have to pick up regardless, so there's no difference between 5 Banes or 20 Banes. However, if he did a big dedicated tank push, then I would morph as many Banelings as I could. The reason this is important is if you morph too many Banelings early, it's going to delay your tech and your droning by a lot. So always be on the conservative side with Banes, but always have like 5 or 6 with each army. A big mistake I make this game is I don't cancel this 5th base in time. Not the biggest deal. I've still got my army pre-split in half, but I probably could have been sitting at the edge of this creep too, to stop more tumors being destroyed. But now I'm just getting into my lurkers, and the game looks pretty good for me. I'm up to 80 drones. I could even go higher maybe. I'm up to 8 gases. I've got my 2-2 on the way. My hive's almost done. So he's getting into his mine production now, and he's going to land his 4th base. But my lurkers are already on the way. I've got lurker range on the way, I've got adrenal. I lost a few units there to the army running in that I probably shouldn't have, which is a bit of a mistake. But now I'm just going to morph lurkers as soon as my hydras are out and my lurker den's done. And from here on, the game is going to be pretty easy for me. Alright, so I see he comes down to the bottom side, and I'm going to put my lurkers down there and burrow them. And it's basically impossible for him to attack into this without ghosts or tanks or libs. And he usually needs a combination of those. So once you get lurkers out, if your opponent doesn't have those units, you're usually very, very safe. So you can see here, I'm going to do what I suggested you guys do, which is if your opponent is pushing you with their army, this is basically his main army at this point, just borrow all your lurkers in front of it, and go for a big run-by with the rest of your units, and you might often be able to steal a win. Since it's very non-committal for you, since you can always run back, and he can't punish you by running in, there's no reason not to poke in at least. But he had enough army in position that I couldn't quite end it. So something I could have done at this point is probably go to 90 to 100 drones and take my 9th and 10th gases, but I stayed on a lower drone count and I just tried to do a lot of damage. So since it's only like 1040 and he doesn't have a high ghost count, in fact he doesn't have any ghosts I think at this point. Wait, let me check that. Yeah, no ghosts, and his tank count is also very low and he's still on mines. I know that I can do a timing with my lurkers. If your opponent is still making mines and doesn't have ghosts, don't be afraid to run into their base with a bunch of lurkers. So you can see I end up trading super well. And since there's a tank and a planetary, I have to back off, but that trade was amazing for me. At the other side, I'm just defending with lurkers at home. Usually, if you have 3 lurkers at a base, usually I like to do 3 lurkers and a spine, or 3 lurkers and a spine and a spore. almost no amount of bio will be able to kill it, like no amount of marines. He needs a lot of marauders to stop that, so just keeping these 4 lurkers at home basically means that my base is completely defended. That was not how you say that. Defended. Right, so I'm just defending the drop. I managed to pick off a medevac there. Another thing is in the upgrade order, you should always go 1-1, then 2-2, and then +1 missile and +3 carapace with this style. Still got my army split up at the top in case he drops at the top, and I've got enough army at the bottom to stop any kind of drops. Now that he's taking a 5th base, I know he's going to be very vulnerable, so I'm going to try and attack in and do some trading. So I deny the 5th base, and now I just have so much units at this point, and I've got so many lurkers, and I see that he doesn't have an army here, that I can just run in and kill a base. And now he's dead. So, if I hadn't been able to kill him here, I would have had to play into a late game. The best things to do in late game are start a double Nidus, and send overseers around the map and try and put a double Nidus in your opponent's base and Nidus lurkers into their main. If that happens, you usually win the game. Other than that, as soon as he gets a high ghost count, you want to stay on a pretty low lurker count and mostly play Hydraling Bane, but I'll make a video on late game compositions and plans in the future. So this was a video where my opponent played 2cc Liberator, and I defended it without losing much, and then went into a solid mid game and basically was way ahead going into the late game and just killed him. So I hope that helps you out, guys, and I'll see you later. Hey, if you enjoyed watching this video, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed for when I upload in the future. Thanks.